Lily Warren stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, her small hands clenched so tightly her nails cut into her skin. The penthouse kitchen glowed with soft morning light, all glass and steel and silence, yet her chest felt crushed, as if the air itself refused to move. Across the island, Margaret Warren smiled calmly, the kind of smile adults trusted without question. "Say you're sorry," Margaret said, her voice gentle enough to sound kind. Lily shook her head once. She had learned that crying only made things worse. The doctor cleared his throat and glanced down at his tablet. He had arrived less than 15 minutes ago, still wearing his coat, still smelling faintly of coffee. "Children under stress often deny harmful behavior," he said, not looking at Lily. Ethan Warren stood near the window, Manhattan stretching behind him in gray lines and distant horns. His phone buzzed with emails from Wall Street, numbers moving faster than thoughts. He didn't turn around. "I didn't do anything," Lily whispered. Margaret sighed softly, as if exhausted by love. "You pushed me yesterday, Lily. You could have hurt me." The lie landed like a stone. Lily opened her mouth, then closed it. Her father believed data, records, calm voices, not a child with shaking hands. The doctor typed something quickly. "Increased anxiety, possible oppositional behavior." Lily felt something break inside her. She looked at her father again, searching his face for doubt, for hesitation, for anything. Ethan adjusted his watch instead. Margaret stepped closer and rested a manicured hand on Lily's shoulder, her nails pressed just hard enough to hurt. "We're only trying to help you," she whispered, lips never stopping their smile. Lily flinched, and the doctor noticed that instead of the pressure causing it. "That reaction is concerning," he said. Ethan finally turned. His eyes were tired, distracted, unreadable. "Do whatever you think is best," he said quietly. In that moment, Lily understood something terrifying. No one in this room was on her side, and whatever Margaret wanted next, she would get it. That truth would push her into danger. Lily Warren used to talk too much. That was what her mother used to laugh about, back when the apartment smelled like burnt toast and cheap laundry soap, before silence became the safest choice. Lily remembered sitting at the small kitchen table, swinging her legs, telling stories that went nowhere while her mother pretended to listen after long shifts at work. Everything changed the night of the accident. The police said it was rain. The hospital said it was instant. The files said no further family. Within 6 months, Ethan remarried. Margaret moved into Lily's life with new furniture, new rules, and a voice that never raised but always controlled the room. Lily learned quickly. She learned how to walk quietly on marble floors. She learned which cameras blinked red and which ones didn't. She learned that saying "I don't know" was safer than saying the truth. At school, she became the girl who stared out the window. At home, she became invisible. Margaret praised her in public. At charity lunches and private school meetings, she touched Lily's hair and spoke about patience and sacrifice. Teachers smiled. Other parents nodded. No one saw the nights Lily went to bed hungry because dinner was a privilege. No one heard the warnings whispered behind closed doors. "Your father doesn't like difficult children," Margaret would say calmly. "You don't want him to send you away, do you?" Those words wrapped around Lily's chest tighter than any lock. She tried once to tell her father. Just once. It was after a long trip, when he sat on the sofa scrolling through emails on his phone, suit jacket still on. "I don't feel safe," Lily said softly. Ethan didn't look up. "Margaret is under a lot of pressure," he replied. "You need to behave." That was the day Lily stopped asking for help. She began to watch instead, to remember times, words, patterns, to store them quietly, like something fragile she might need later. Because Lily sensed something worse was coming, and when it arrived, silence alone would not save her. She would need proof. The penthouse sat high above the city, wrapped in glass, overlooking a skyline most people only saw in movies. To visitors, it looked like safety, success, and comfort. To Lily Warren, it felt like a place where every breath was measured. The floors were always spotless. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and expensive candles. Nothing was ever out of place except Lily. She learned quickly which rooms were off limits and which hours were safest to stay silent. The living room belonged to Margaret. The office belonged to her father. Lily belonged nowhere. Cameras watched everything. They were small, white, easy to miss, tucked into corners and bookshelves. Margaret said they were for security. Lily noticed they never faced the doors, only the inside of the home. Every movement, every mistake was recorded. Margaret controlled the house with schedules printed neatly and taped inside cabinet doors. Meals at exact times, showers limited, lights out enforced. When Lily forgot, privileges disappeared quietly. No dessert, no internet, no phone calls to school friends. At night, Lily lay awake listening to the city far below. Cars moved, people laughed somewhere. Life went on without her. She pressed her ear to the door once, hearing Margaret's voice from the living room, low and sharp, speaking to someone on the phone. Names she didn't recognize. Numbers whispered like secrets. Once, Lily tried to step outside onto the balcony for air. Margaret caught her instantly. "Accidents happen," she said calmly, locking the door, "especially with children like you." After that, the balcony stayed locked. The house was full of beautiful things Lily wasn't allowed to touch. Art she didn't understand. Furniture she couldn't sit on. Silence she was expected to respect. And slowly, Lily realized something chilling. This house wasn't built to protect her. It was built to watch her fail. Every rule, every camera, every silence was preparing Lily for a trap she could feel closing, even if she couldn't yet see it. And Margaret was waiting for that moment, all along now. To the outside world, Margaret Warren was flawless. She arrived at school events in tailored coats, greeting teachers by name, asking thoughtful questions about curriculum and behavior. Other parents admired her patience, the way she spoke softly about Lily, as if raising a fragile child was a noble burden. Lily watched from the edges. At charity luncheons and museum fundraisers, Margaret's hand rested gently on Lily's back, guiding her like a prized accessory. She laughed at the right moments, donated generously, and spoke about family values. Cameras flashed, smiles spread. No one noticed how Lily's shoulders tightened beneath that gentle touch. Margaret understood perception better than truth. She curated it carefully. She kept notes on every teacher, every neighbor, every staff member. She remembered birthdays, allergies, preferences. People felt seen around her, trusted her, defended her. Behind closed doors, the warmth vanished. Margaret's voice never rose. That was the most frightening part. Her words were precise, delivered slowly, like instructions rather than threats. "You embarrass me," she would say. "You confuse people. You make them uncomfortable." Each sentence landed calmly, leaving Lily unsure whether she was being punished or educated. When Lily cried, Margaret waited. She never interrupted. She let the tears finish, then offered a tissue and a quiet reminder. "Crying doesn't help your reputation." Margaret often spoke about Lily's late mother, always kindly, always with distance. "She struggled," she told others. "Mental health issues run in families." Lily heard that phrase repeated until it felt official, permanent. Even Ethan echoed it sometimes without realizing. He trusted Margaret's organization, her stability, her calm logic. She handled the home so he could handle the company. Lily began to understand the danger. Margaret didn't need to hurt her openly. She only needed everyone else to believe she was protecting her. And by the time anyone questioned that story, Lily would already be labeled the problem. That label was Margaret's strongest weapon. And soon, she planned to prove Lily unfit publicly, turning admiration into unquestioned authority, while sealing the child's fate without raising suspicion forever thereafter. Lily first saw Caleb Ross on a quiet afternoon when the house felt unusually tense. Margaret wore a red dress she never wore at home, her makeup sharper, her smile rehearsed. She told Lily to stay in her room, which meant someone important was coming. Caleb arrived without luggage, without hesitation. He moved through the penthouse like he belonged, admiring the view, commenting on the art, asking about security upgrades. He didn't look at Lily at first, which somehow felt worse than staring. When he finally noticed her, his smile was slow and assessing. "You must be Lily," he said as if reading her from a file. "I've heard a lot." Margaret laughed lightly. "Only good things," she replied too quickly. Lily sat on the stairs, pretending to read, listening instead. Caleb's voice dropped when he spoke to Margaret, smooth and confident. Numbers came up, accounts, timelines, words Lily didn't fully understand but felt heavy in the air. That night, Lily heard them arguing in the living room, not loudly, strategically. Caleb questioned Ethan's travel schedule. Margaret answered without hesitation. They spoke about documents and signatures, about how stress made people careless. "Children complicate things," Caleb said. Margaret paused. Not for long. Lily's stomach twisted. She hugged her knees, pressing herself against the wall so hard it hurt. This wasn't just cruelty. It was planning. Over the following days, Caleb appeared often. He drank coffee at the counter, worked on a MacBook, spoke into his phone about risk and leverage. Staff treated him like authority. Cameras were adjusted. Locks were tested. Lily realized something terrifying. Margaret wasn't acting alone. Caleb wasn't a guest. He was the architect. And together, they were building something that had no place for her in it. The danger Lily sensed now had a name, a face, and a deadline approaching fast, and she understood that once the plan moved forward, silence would no longer protect her or give her any chance to escape alive before everything she loved was taken from her, permanently, without mercy. The appointment was scheduled without Lily's knowledge. She was told she was missing school for a routine checkup, nothing more. Margaret chose her outfit, brushed her hair, and reminded her to smile. Doctors like cooperative children, she said calmly. The clinic was quiet and expensive, all white walls and soft music. Lily sat on the edge of the chair while Margaret spoke for her. She described mood swings, defiance, sudden aggression. Each lie was delivered with concern, not anger. The doctor nodded, typing notes before Lily spoke a single word. When Lily tried to explain, Margaret interrupted gently. "She gets overwhelmed," she said. "That's part of the problem." The evaluation lasted 20 minutes. The doctor leaned back, thoughtful but certain. "Severe anxiety, possible behavioral instability," he concluded. "Early intervention is important." Lily felt dizzy. She looked at the door, then at her father's empty seat beside Margaret. Ethan was out of town. His absence felt planned. Margaret thanked the doctor and accepted pamphlets, prescriptions, referrals. She squeezed Lily's hand hard enough to warn her not to react. "This is for your own good," she whispered. Back home, the rules changed overnight. Lily was no longer allowed to be alone. Her school schedule was adjusted. Her backpack was searched. Even her drawings were inspected for violent themes. Margaret called Ethan that night. Her voice was calm, reasonable. She spoke about professional opinions and safety. She didn't mention Lily crying quietly in the bathroom afterward. Ethan agreed over speakerphone. "If the doctor says it's necessary, we should listen," he said. That was when Lily understood the trap. A label had been placed on her, official and permanent. Anything she said now would be treated as proof of instability. Silence would mean surrender. Speaking would mean confirmation. Margaret watched her from across the room, satisfied. She had moved the plan forward without resistance. And Lily, trapped inside someone else's diagnosis, realized time was running out faster than she feared. The walls felt closer, and the air seemed to obey Margaret now. If she didn't act soon, she would disappear legally, quietly, and forever. Mrs. Nora Klein had taught art for 20 years, long enough to recognize fear when it hid behind polite silence. Lily's drawings were different from the other children's, not violent, not dark, just empty. Large spaces with no faces, houses without doors, stick figures standing far apart. Nora noticed how Lily flinched when adults spoke too quickly, how she froze when asked simple questions. These were not signs of a dangerous child. They were signs of a scared one. Nora tried once to call Lily's father, leaving a careful message with the school office. He never called back. After the diagnosis, the school received instructions limiting Lily's interactions. Nora was told to observe, not interfere. She obeyed until the day Lily handed her a folded piece of paper instead of a painting. Inside were dates, times, and short sentences written in careful block letters. "I am not lying, please don't tell her." Nora's hands shook. For the first time, she understood the risk of doing nothing, and she realized something else that made her blood run cold. Someone had carefully taught Lily how to document her own abuse, and whoever that was expected it to be needed soon. Nora folded the paper back, forced a calm smile, and said nothing aloud. But inside, a line had been crossed. She began watching the watchers, memorizing patterns, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer be safe. That moment, she feared, was closer than anyone realized. And when it came, hesitation would cost a child everything. So Nora made a decision she never thought she would make. She would not be invisible anymore, even if it destroyed her career, because saving Lily now mattered more than following rules written by frightened adults. And quietly, without warning anyone, she prepared for what came next. It would be dangerous. But Lily had already been brave alone for too long. Nora refused to let her face what was coming by herself. The next move would change everything, and it would start very soon. No one could stop it. The night Lily disappeared, no one called the police. Margaret said there was no need. She told the staff Lily was unstable and hiding to get attention. Everyone believed her. Lily had been taken earlier that evening, not dragged, not screaming. She was calm because fear had already hollowed her out. The car waited in the underground garage. Caleb opened the back door and gestured inside. Lily noticed the child lock immediately. Margaret knelt in front of her. "This is just for a few days," she said softly. "A place that can help you reset." Lily looked at the garage camera blinking red. She memorized it. The car pulled away without sound. Margaret watched from the security monitor upstairs. She poured herself a glass of wine. Everything was going exactly as planned. Except one thing. Lily was not gone. She was counting time, routes, voices, moments. And somewhere deep inside that moving car, Lily decided she would survive this. Because if she didn't, Margaret would win forever. And that was something Lily refused to allow, even if it meant becoming someone else entirely. The road ahead was dark and unfamiliar, but fear no longer owned her. It followed instead. Outside, the city lights blurred past the window. Lily rested her head against the glass. She did not cry. Crying wasted energy. She needed every second sharp. Somewhere behind her, the penthouse lights shut off. Margaret believed the problem was handled. She believed silence meant victory. She was wrong. Lily was already planning her return, and when she did, nothing would ever be the same again. That night marked the beginning of a hidden war. No witnesses, no mercy, only patience. Lily closed her eyes and breathed slowly. She would remember everything, every mistake they made, every lie. Because survival was no longer enough. Truth was waiting, and so was justice. Her disappearance was meant to erase her. Instead, it set her free. And soon the people who trapped her would realize their mistake. By then, it would already be far too late for them. While Lily was being driven away, Margaret was already moving on to the next step. She sat in Ethan's office, the one she rarely entered, surrounded by glass walls and quiet authority. His desk was immaculate, a single Mont Blanc pen resting beside a stack of documents she had prepared days ago. Caleb stood nearby, watching the hallway through the open door. "He'll be exhausted," he said. "Keep it simple." Margaret nodded. She understood timing. Ethan returned near midnight, jacket loosened, eyes tired from delayed flights and endless meetings. He barely noticed the wine she poured or the lights dimmed low enough to feel calm. "I need you to sign a few things," Margaret said gently. "It's about Lily's care." Ethan frowned, skimming pages without really reading. Legal language blurred together. Temporary guardianship adjustments, emergency authority, medical consent. Everything sounded responsible, necessary. "She's been getting worse," Margaret continued. "The doctor is concerned. Tonight was difficult." Ethan hesitated for a moment. "Where is she?" "Resting," Margaret replied smoothly, "where she can't hurt herself." Caleb stepped forward then, introducing himself as a consultant. He spoke confidently about liability, about protecting the company from scandal. Ethan listened. He always listened to certainty. One signature followed another. Ink dried quickly. With each page, Lily's world shrank further away. Margaret collected the papers carefully, her hands steady. She thanked Ethan for trusting her. He didn't see the relief in her eyes. He didn't notice how final everything felt. Upstairs, Lily's room remained untouched, her bed neatly made, her door locked. By morning, the documents would be filed, official, irreversible. By the time Ethan questioned anything, it would be too late. Margaret stood alone after Ethan went to bed, holding the folder against her chest. She had won the quietest battle of all, and Lily, wherever she was, no longer legally belonged to herself. The silence felt permanent, but beneath it, consequences were forming, waiting to surface, waiting to punish those who believed power and paperwork could erase a child without ever being seen by truth arriving sooner than expected. Morning arrived quietly, as if nothing unusual had happened. Sunlight filled the penthouse, touching polished floors and silent walls. Margaret moved through the kitchen calmly, answering calls, confirming appointments, speaking in the soft tone people trusted without question. At school, the story spread quickly. Lily had suffered a breakdown. Lily was unstable. Lily needed special care. Teachers nodded with concern. Administrators documented everything. No one asked where Lily was. Nora Klein did ask. She stood in the principal's office, hands folded, voice steady. "I haven't seen Lily today." The principal sighed. "Her stepmother informed us last night. Lily won't be attending for a while." "For how long?" Nora pressed. "That depends on medical guidance." Nora left the office with a weight in her chest she couldn't explain. Something about the speed of it all felt wrong. At home, Ethan woke late and scanned emails on his phone. Margaret placed breakfast in front of him, mentioning meetings and schedules. She spoke about Lily with sadness, never urgency. "It's better this way," she said. "Professionals know how to handle these situations." Ethan nodded, trusting the process he believed in. Systems, experts, paperwork. By afternoon, Lily's absence felt normal to everyone except those who truly saw her. Her desk was cleared, her name removed from class lists. The lie had hardened into fact. Margaret watched security footage alone, replaying empty hallways and closed doors. She smiled for the first time that day. Silence was powerful. Silence meant control. But far from the penthouse, Lily sat in a narrow room with locked windows, listening to unfamiliar sounds. She counted breaths, remembered faces, and held on to one thought with everything she had. This story was not finished, because truths built on lies always demanded payment. And soon, the lie Margaret had carefully crafted would grow heavy enough to collapse under its own weight, dragging everyone involved into consequences none of them were prepared to face when reality finally arrived without mercy, exposing intentions, restoring balance, and ensuring justice reached those who abused power, trust, and silence. Now, Ethan Warren did not plan to come home early. The flight was changed because a deal collapsed, numbers refusing to align the way his analysts promised. He left the boardroom irritated, mindful, instincts unsettled. The penthouse was darker than usual when he arrived. Margaret greeted him with surprise that felt slightly delayed. She hugged him, asked about his trip, avoided one question. "Where's Lily?" he asked. Margaret answered too quickly. "Sleeping. The medication makes her tired." Something tightened in Ethan's chest. He walked past her toward Lily's room, but the door was locked. "That's new," he said. Margaret smiled gently. "Doctor's orders." Ethan didn't argue, but he didn't relax either. He opened his laptop at the kitchen counter, scrolling through reports he hadn't planned to read. One email caught his attention, a system alert, an internal security log showing unusual access times inside the penthouse. He frowned. Margaret had never touched the security system before. Another notification followed, a document upload from his home network, time stamped while he was still in the air. Files labeled emergency guardianship. His pulse slowed, sharpened. He checked the living room cameras, empty. He checked the hallway feed, Lily's door, locked, no movement. "Margaret," he said quietly, "where is my daughter?" She hesitated, only a second, but Ethan noticed seconds. "She's safe," Margaret replied. "That's all you need to know." Ethan closed his laptop. For the first time in months, he felt the sensation he trusted most. Not data, not reports, instinct. And instinct told him something was very wrong. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that power had just shifted. Ethan Warren had returned early, and without realizing it yet, he had stepped directly into the lie that would soon destroy his family, expose betrayal, and force a reckoning no one inside that penthouse could escape alive emotionally ever again. He stood there, silent, realizing the danger was no longer theoretical and that saving Lily would require tearing apart everything he once believed, including his marriage, his reputation, and the illusion of control completely. Now, Ethan insisted on seeing Lily the next morning. Margaret did not argue. That worried him more than resistance. She drove him herself, calm and prepared, explaining procedures as if rehearsed. The facility stood outside the city, clean and quiet, surrounded by trimmed hedges and locked gates. Inside, everything smelled like disinfectant and rules. A nurse led Ethan down a narrow hallway without meeting his eyes. Lily sat on a bed too large for her body. Her hands rested neatly in her lap. She did not look up when her father entered. "Lily," Ethan said softly. She didn't respond. Margaret stepped forward. "She's been refusing to speak," she explained. "It's part of the condition." Ethan knelt in front of his daughter. "Hey," he said, forcing a smile. "It's Dad." Lily's fingers tightened, then relaxed. She kept her eyes on the floor. Doctors watched through a glass window. Notes were taken. Silence was interpreted. "Selective mutism," one of them said quietly. "Common in trauma cases." Ethan felt the room closing in. He tried again. "You can tell me anything." Lily lifted her eyes for half a second. In them, Ethan saw something that data had never shown him before: fear and a warning. Then she looked away. Margaret placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "This is why she needs to stay here." For the first time, Ethan didn't immediately agree. Something about Lily's silence felt deliberate, not broken, strategic. When he stood to leave, Lily finally moved. She slipped something into his coat pocket with emotion so small no one else noticed. Ethan felt it but didn't react. Outside, Margaret spoke about progress and patience. Ethan listened, nodded, played the role. But inside his pocket, his hand closed around a folded piece of paper. And for the first time since returning early, Ethan understood that Lily wasn't giving up. She was waiting. Now he knew the truth would come only when he was ready to listen without assumptions or fear, and act decisively as her father, no matter the cost ahead for them. The gala at the Plaza Hotel glittered with chandeliers and controlled laughter, a room filled with people who measured success by reflections in crystal glasses. Ethan arrived beside Margaret, his arms stiff, his expression composed. To the crowd, they looked united, powerful, untouched. Margaret was radiant. She moved easily between executives, donors, and board members, speaking about resilience, about family, about responsibility. Several people praised her strength for handling such a difficult situation. She accepted sympathy with grace. Ethan listened and said little. The folded paper from Lily burned in his pocket, unread but unforgettable. He watched Margaret carefully now, noticing details he once ignored. The way she answered questions before they were finished. The way she redirected conversations when Lily's name lingered too long. Caleb Ross appeared near the bar, relaxed, confident, as if tonight belonged to him too. He raised his glass to Margaret when Ethan wasn't looking. The gesture was brief, but it was enough. Dinner began. Applause followed speeches about leadership and trust. Margaret was invited on stage to say a few words about supporting vulnerable children. The irony tightened Ethan's chest. She spoke beautifully. The room leaned in. Cameras flashed. Some children, Margaret said gently, require difficult decisions for their own safety. Ethan felt the lie settle over the crowd like a blanket. He excused himself and stepped aside, finally opening Lily's note beneath the soft glow of a hallway lamp. The handwriting was careful, uneven, brave. She had written times, dates, one sentence underlined twice. She is lying. Please don't trust her. Ethan closed his eyes. Inside the ballroom, Margaret smiled as applause rose. She believed the night belonged to her. She did not know it was about to become the stage where her control would begin to slip, quietly, publicly, and in front of everyone who once admired her without question. By the time the final toast ended, Ethan had already chosen his side, and nothing Margaret said afterward would stop the truth from stepping forward, dressed in patience, evidence, and consequences for everyone watching closely tonight. Margaret waited until dessert plates were cleared. She knew timing mattered. When the room was calm and satisfied, she stood again, smiling with practiced humility. "There is something personal I want to share," she said, voice steady. Conversations faded, phones lifted. She spoke about fear, about responsibility, about the burden of loving a child who could hurt herself or others. She never said Lily's name at first. She didn't have to. "I chose safety over comfort," Margaret continued. "Any mother here would understand." The room murmured approval. Then she said it. "My stepdaughter has shown violent tendencies." The word hit hard. Ethan felt every eye shift toward him. Board members, investors, people whose opinions shaped futures. Margaret's hand trembled slightly, a performance of pain. "She attacked me," Margaret said softly. "I protected her, and now she's receiving care." Gasps, sympathy, no questions. Ethan stood slowly. The room quieted again, unsure. "My daughter is 10, he said. Margaret turned surprised, not afraid yet. "She is not dangerous," Ethan continued. "She is scared." Margaret's smile tightened. "Ethan, this isn't the place." "This is exactly the place," he interrupted. He looked around the room. "If any of you had a child who stopped speaking overnight, would you call her violent or would you ask who taught her to be afraid?" Silence spread. Margaret laughed lightly. "You're emotional. We agreed." "I agreed to trust you," Ethan said, "and that was my mistake." A server froze mid-step. Cameras hovered. Ethan pulled out his phone. "Before we continue," he said, "there are things you all deserve to hear." Margaret's breath caught for the first time. She realized too late that admiration had turned into attention. And attention, unlike silence, could not be controlled once truth stepped forward, ready to expose everything she built on lies, manipulation, and a child suffering starting now. The crowd leaned closer, unaware they were witnessing the moment power shifted, reputations cracked, and a protected lie began collapsing publicly, violently, and irreversibly, with consequences that would echo long after the music stopped. Ethan held his phone steady, his thumb hovering over the screen. The ballroom waited, confused, curious, hungry for resolution. Margaret shook her head slightly, a warning meant only for him. "Don't," she whispered. Ethan looked at her and saw a stranger, not a partner, not a protector, a risk. He pressed play. Lily's voice filled the room, small, clear, unmistakably calm. "She told me to be quiet," the recording said. "She said no one would believe me." A ripple moved through the crowd. Margaret stepped back. "This is manipulation," she said quickly. "She's sick." Ethan raised his hand. "No, she's precise." He turned to the audience. "My daughter wrote one sentence I couldn't ignore." He read from the note, his voice steady. "She is lying, please don't trust her." Silence collapsed the room. Margaret laughed sharply. "A child's imagination." "Mary doesn't create timestamps," Ethan said. He projected files onto the screen behind him. Security logs, camera edits, deleted audio, Caleb's access credentials, patterns, data. Margaret's face drained of color. Caleb moved toward the exit. Security blocked him. "This was planned," Ethan continued. "Diagnoses rushed, papers signed under false pretenses, a child removed without consent. People stood, phones recorded, whispers turned sharp." Margaret reached for Ethan's arm. "You'll ruin us." "You already did," he replied. Police entered quietly, guided by hotel security. Margaret froze. As she was escorted away, she looked at Ethan, then finally at the crowd. The mask was gone. Ethan didn't watch her leave. He looked at the empty space where Lily should have been. One sentence had saved his daughter and destroyed everything built on lies. Justice arrived without shouting, only clarity. The audience understood complicity, silence, and fear. Ethan understood fatherhood. Somewhere beyond the ballroom, Lily waited, still silent, still brave. Tonight was not her rescue yet. It was the moment the world stopped doubting her existence, pain, and truth. That reckoning would echo beyond headlines, shaping consequences for everyone who watched, believed, or chose comfort over courage until justice finished what silence began, completely publicly, permanently, at last now. The investigation moved faster than anyone anticipated. By morning, attorneys, auditors, and child welfare officials filled the penthouse with quiet urgency. Margaret was gone, Caleb was in custody, and for the first time the house felt less like a fortress and more like a crime scene. Ethan sat alone at the kitchen table, Lily's note unfolded beside his phone. He replayed every decision he had made, every moment he chose efficiency over attention. Regret settled heavy, but it did not paralyze him. It sharpened him. The breakthrough did not come from emotion, it came from data. Ethan's security team flagged an inconsistency in the building system logs. Camera files had been altered remotely, not manually. That required credentials Ethan had never issued to Margaret. They traced the access to an external financial firm, a shell company, Caleb's. More records surfaced, emails, payment transfers, medical referrals incentivized through donations. The rush diagnosis wasn't careless. It was purchased. Authorities reopened Lily's case within hours. When Ethan arrived at the facility, Lily was already waiting, sitting exactly as before, silent, still. He knelt and didn't speak. He simply held out his phone and placed it between them. "I believe you," he said. Lily's shoulders shook once. Then she nodded. The caseworker watched closely, saying nothing. Later, reports confirmed the truth. Lily had never been unstable. She had been systematically isolated, conditioned, framed. The realization broke something inside Ethan, but it also rebuilt him. Margaret's image collapsed publicly by nightfall. Charities cut ties. Boards resigned her. The narrative flipped with brutal speed. Justice did not roar, it documented. And for Lily, the truth did not arrive as an apology. It arrived as something stronger. Validation. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer doubted. The most dangerous lie had failed not because of force, but because a child chose patience, and a father finally chose to see clearly, without excuses, fear, or delay, changing everything from that moment forward. Caleb Ross never planned to confess. He planned to survive. When the evidence closed in, he asked for a deal, not forgiveness. In a quiet interrogation room, he leaned forward and spoke quickly, naming names, dates, and methods with the calm of a man saving himself. He described Margaret's first request: control the narrative, build a record, remove the child legally. He admitted altering files, paying consultants, and coaching language that would sound protective instead of cruel. Every word landed like a blow. Margaret listened from another room, face pale, hands trembling. For years she had believed she was smarter than consequences. Caleb's betrayal proved otherwise. Charges multiplied: fraud, abuse, conspiracy. The image she curated collapsed under sworn testimony. Publicly, the fall was immediate. Sponsors withdrew, friends vanished. Headlines replaced admiration with outrage. The woman once praised for sacrifice was now described as calculated and dangerous. Ethan attended one hearing. He did not look at Margaret. He focused on Lily's small hand in his, grounding him in what mattered. Margaret tried to speak once. "I did everything for this family." No one responded. Caleb received a reduced sentence. Not mercy, just math. He would live with his choices. Margaret would not. Sentencing came swiftly. The judge spoke plainly. Power abused, a child harmed, trust destroyed. When the gavel struck, the illusion ended. Lily watched from a private room, shielded but aware. She did not smile. She felt something quieter. Relief. The people who frightened her no longer controlled the world around her. The danger had a name, a record, and a consequence. Justice was not dramatic, it was final. And for the first time, Lily understood that monsters did not disappear by magic. They were revealed, documented, and stopped by truth that refused to stay buried, no matter how carefully someone tried to silence it forever. That knowledge settled deep inside her, replacing fear with certainty, teaching her that survival was not luck but endurance, and that her voice, once dismissed, had permanently reshaped every adult world around her from this moment onward forward. Ethan did not speak at the courthouse steps. Cameras waited, questions shouted, but he walked past them with Lily's hand in his, shielding her from everything that had already taken too much. Back home, the penthouse felt wrong, too big, too quiet. He closed the doors to rooms that carried memories and opened windows that had never been allowed before. Light moved freely. So did air. That night, Ethan sat on the floor outside Lily's room. He did not knock. He did not rush. He waited. "I failed you," he said quietly. Lily sat on the bed, listening. "I trusted systems more than my child. I believed calm voices instead of fear." His voice broke. He let it. "I won't ask you to forgive me." Minutes passed. Lily slid off the bed and sat beside him. She did not touch him yet. "You didn't listen," she said. "I know. You believed her." "Yes." Silence returned, heavier but honest. Ethan placed the keys to the penthouse on the floor. "We can leave," he said. "Anywhere you want." Lily thought for a moment. Not yet. That answer surprised him. "I don't want to run," she continued. "I want to feel safe here." Ethan nodded. "Then we make it safe." Therapy followed, not forced, not rushed. Choices returned slowly, locks removed, cameras dismantled, schedules softened. Ethan stepped back from work, delegating control for the first time in his career. He attended meetings with Lily's counselors. He learned to listen without fixing. Guilt stayed, but it changed shape. It became responsibility. One evening, Lily reached for his hand without thinking. Ethan felt it like forgiveness, though he knew it was trust rebuilding. Fragile and real, a father on his knees had learned the cost of standing too tall, the danger of pride, and the duty of protecting someone smaller, weaker, and braver than himself, not with control but with presence, patience, and love that listens first, stays when it hurts, and never turns away again, even when fear returns and mistakes threaten to repeat themselves once more. Lily did not attend the sentencing. Ethan chose that for her. Justice did not need her presence to exist. It needed distance, space to heal, and time to feel safe again. Life changed quietly after the trial. There were no celebrations, no speeches, no interviews. Just mornings that began without fear and nights without locked doors. Lily returned to school slowly on her terms. Nora Klein waited for her with open arms and no questions. Therapy became routine, not punishment. Words returned in pieces. Some days Lily spoke freely. Other days she chose silence, and that choice was respected. Control was finally hers. Margaret's name faded from conversations, but not from consequence. She lost her freedom, her status, and the admiration she once fed on. The world that rewarded her cruelty no longer existed. There was no dramatic downfall to witness, only accountability carried out methodically, exactly as the law intended. Ethan faced his own reckoning. He stepped down temporarily from leadership, not to escape blame but to earn trust back. He learned that presence mattered more than power, and listening mattered more than solutions. Lily noticed the difference. He no longer checked his phone during conversations. He waited. He asked. He believed. One afternoon, they visited a small bookstore near the park. Lily picked a notebook with a blue cover. "For thoughts," she said. Ethan bought it without comment. That night, Lily wrote her first entry. It was not about fear. It was about wanting to learn piano. Justice had done its work, not by creating more pain, but by removing those who caused it. And Lily, once treated as a problem, was now simply a child again. Safe, seen, free to imagine a future that belonged to her, untouched by manipulation, silence, or fear, and shaped instead by choice, care, and the quiet certainty that she would never be invisible again. This ending was not loud, but it was complete, proving that true justice heals victims, limits abusers, and allows childhood, dignity, and hope to return where they were stolen at last peacefully. Lily did not wake up rich. She did not move into another mansion. Nothing extravagant waited for her. What Lily received was quieter but far more valuable. She woke up without fear. She chose her clothes. She ate breakfast when she was hungry, not when rules allowed. Her room became hers. The door stayed unlocked, the windows opened. Ethan walked her to school every morning, even when meetings waited. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they did not. Both were okay. Lily started piano lessons. She practiced slowly, carefully, pressing each key as if sound itself required trust. She laughed more, not loudly but freely. Nora remained part of her life, no longer a watcher but family. There were still hard days, triggers, nightmares, moments when Lily went quiet. But now silence was a choice, not a prison. Ethan rebuilt his career slowly, publicly accountable, privately changed. He learned that leadership at home mattered more than authority anywhere else. Margaret became a case study, a warning, a consequence. No redemption arc, no excuses, just accountability. Lily received something rare, a childhood returned, a father who listened, a home that felt safe, and something else unexpected: hope. Not the kind that ignores pain, but the kind that grows after it. Lily did not need revenge. She needed truth, protection, and love. She got all three, and this time they stayed. The future did not look perfect, but it was hers. For the first time, Lily believed that. She slept deeply, she dreamed again. And when she smiled, it was real, unforced, and free, proving that justice, when done right, does not end a story. It gives one back. Lily stepped forward, carrying scars, but no shame. The past lost its power. Her life moved ahead, steady, honest, and whole, exactly what had once been denied to her, and exactly what she deserved, now and always, with love, safety, dignity, and a future shaped by her own voice, her own choices, and a quiet happiness no one could ever take away. Finally, completely, and forever. This was the ending she earned, protected, and kept. So, the story has come to an end, and if you're still here with us right now, that means something in Lily's journey touched your heart in a quiet but real way. What this story reminds us is simple, yet powerful. Silence is not weakness, and patience is not surrender. Sometimes survival looks like waiting, like observing, like holding on to truth until the right moment arrives. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Lily had no control over the adults around her, but she never let go of her inner truth, and in the end, that truth became her shield. This story is also a reminder for parents, partners, and anyone with power. Listening is an act of love. Systems, titles, and appearances can fail. Human presence should not. Healing begins the moment someone finally says, "I believe you." If this story resonated with you, if it made you reflect on family, trust, or your own healing, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter. Thank you for staying until the end. You're not here by accident.